I thought practice went well tonight. You know, we obviously had to spend a lot of time, preparing for an offense that's a little bit different in terms of tempo. And last night and tonight we spent a lot of time with that, just trying to simulate the possible speed of how fast, the tempo of the game may go. I thought we've prepared well for that. We still got a little ways to go and get some things cleaned up, to prepare for that. The main thing is getting our defense aligned, but I thought it went well. Again, I thought the energy level was good at practice tonight, and I thought it was productive. So we got to clean some more things up tomorrow, obviously, but it'll be a great challenge for us, and this is, particularly for our defense. It'll be a fun game. So offensively, got to prepare for a lot of different nine-man fronts and stacking everybody in the box. Some, good amount of pressure is what we're expecting. So those are the kind of things that we worked on tonight.
Questions?
Any decision on quarterback yet?
No, we'll go through tomorrow.
If they come out, if they come out in a nine-man front, obviously you're going to still have to run the ball a little bit. How do you run against the team that's stacking the box that much?
Well, they're certainly willing to do it. They are very adamant about putting as many guys up there as they need to. Great case in point is last week, against LSU. They put 9 guys up there, and again, you have to be able to throw it some. That's just the bottom line. But again, there's certain things that you have to be able to try to attempt to run as well. And so it's difficult, to run against those type of fronts. But we feel like we've got some things in place that that are going to help us. But we also have to be able to throw the ball vertically down the field and challenge some of those guys when they're stacking everybody up there. So we've worked on both of those.
Has Kyle made some progress on his recovery?
I think so. I think his arm's feeling somewhat better.
What about Jeff Whitaker? How's he doing?
Jeff's progress right now is slow. Again, we'll wait and see what it looks like, towards the end of the week. But right now, it's slow.
Whenever you first heard Texas A&M be joining the SEC, what were your initial thoughts about that?
Well, I have a great familiarity with Texas A&M, and I've always known that, they've got a lot of pride. They've got great football tradition. I thought that, as far as a fit goes in this league, they would be a great fit, and I also felt like they would be a very challenging addition for everybody in our league, and no matter who is the coach, But Kevin does a great job. Obviously, they had great success at Houston with what they do. It's different, than everybody else in our league. So I think it's, anytime you're faced with a challenge, with a challenge of facing somebody that's completely different than anybody else, it's difficult. So, more than anything, it's difficult to try to simulate the speed in practice. So, but my first thought in them joining the league is that they're going to be a great, a great addition to the league and a contender, and very competitive. And I think everybody knows that that's pretty much the way it is.
Texas A&M obviously is very new to the SEC, to everyone here. Not, as you referenced, not so new to you. Any memories from going against Texas A&M in the past?
Well, just, they've always been, again, a very tradition-oriented, school with, very similar to Auburn in a lot of ways, and but always been very tough, very physical, and very competitive. And they've, again, the tradition that they've got, and the history that they have, the success that they've had. It's a very good university.
As a head coach in this conference, how does their inclusion change the landscape of recruiting competitively? Just the big picture. How did they change that?
Well, You know, depends on what your thoughts are on trying to, you know, go to Texas and bring guys in. You know, some guys have different thoughts on that. You know, LSU's recruited there for years, which makes sense geographically for them. You know, how it changes the landscape in recruiting for some, you know, may be a little bit different. You know, for us, not so much. But, you know, again, they've, the scheme that they use and that type of, you know, that type of deal in the league is definitely different, and it's changed the landscape a little bit of our league based on kind of the way everybody envisions this league being, you know, such a very much of a power football team. Not that they're not, but they're not your traditional, you know, they lead our league in rushing, but it's a different type of rushing attack. You know, their quarterback is, you know, averaging over 100 yards a game himself, which is very different than anybody else in our league. So, just different.
Any update on guys like Ryan Smith, Rike, Justin Garrett, some of those guys that are a little banged up too?
Some of those guys are getting back into the mix, but you know, some of them are kind of like Jeff Whitaker's, kind of slow in returning.
Any of them you expect may be able to play this week? Any of those guys got enough?
A lot of those guys are just going to be game time.